cashier's checks. Sometimes we pay debit. And we'll go to the jail. We will provide that person's name, and we will pay the bail for that person. Now, that's the quick version of it. Today, I was able to return to the normal process of how we do our bails. And this involves going into the jail, interviewing Nashvillians, participants, understanding their particular situations, finding out if they have family members, and seeing how we can connect to those family members and provide information for that person. So when he or she is released from jail, we will be able to give them their court dates, and we will be able to answer any questions that they may have about the bail process itself. And so that in a nutshell, that's how people get out of jail here in Nashville.
I wanted to add one thing. I forgot to mention this on the front end. We are taking questions. So if a question pops up as we're speaking, feel free to put it in the chat. We'll try to answer them as we go if they're relevant, and then we'll have a larger Q&A section near the end. And we welcome any question. Don't feel shy at all. And we want to answer any questions you have about anything you hear.
Mm-hmm. And while we're waiting on questions, I would like to just add that we are aware of many disparities as it relates to bail. For example, just when the protester arrest came in, the Nashville Community Bail Fund, through some of its partners, CJI, was giving information about the bail amounts that were set, but as well as who was being able to get out of jail without a price, and who was having what we call a ransom placed on their bodies. We call it bail to get out. And we found that there were more African Americans here in Nashville who had to pay to get out of jail than those who did not. And thankfully, through the support of many of you, we were able to pay every single bail that was presented to us who was a protester. And there's one example I want to share, two examples actually. Not long ago, there was a police officer who shot someone in Nashville, a black man, and it was clear as day. It was on video, and he was charged with actually murder and first-degree murder. This individual was given a $25,000 bail. Through a bonding company, that person would pay $2,500 to get out of jail. The Nashville Community Bail Fund would not pay a bail that high, because we have a threshold. It's usually, now it's at $2,000, but sometimes we can go up if there are special circumstances. Well, here recently, we had an individual who was charged with vandalism and resisting arrest, and he was given a $75,000 bail. So just think about that. He was an African American. Same charge. We have a white American. He was pre-trial. He had a $5,000 bail, but it was waived. And so he got out for free. We successfully, we were able to talk with the lawyer, and she was able to talk to the attorney, a district attorney, and that $75,000 bail was reduced to $20,000. So these are some of the things that we believe Nashvillians should be aware of, because bail isn't just the same for everybody. The same 10 people can be charged with the same offense, and everybody can have a different bail amount. So this is one of the reasons why we have to end wealth-based detention, but also why we have to transform the money bail system, of what we call pretrial.
Right. So you touched on this a little bit, Raheem, but we did get one question. Can you explain more about how bail is determined for each person?
So as it relates to the Nashville Community Bail Fund, we have a process. Now, I don't know if you're asking about that question or if you're asking about just in general when a person is arrested. So if a person is just arrested and goes before a magistrate, they are supposed to use some type of risk assessment system. The problem with the risk assessment system is that you really can't manage risk. And so what we have found to be true, and we have been collecting data around this particular issue, is that magistrates in Nashville are not even asking whether or not individuals even have the ability to pay. And if a person doesn't have the ability to pay, regardless of the amount of money that a magistrate arrives at. And this is not a person who is elected. This is not a judge. This is a person who has been contracted to do this job, and they arrive at a bail amount. We really don't know how they arrive at this bail amount because it's not something that is observable as far as what I know, but it's something that we definitely need to look into. As it relates to the bail fund, if their bails are $2,000 or less, they qualify. The only thing that we need to do is find a way to communicate with someone who who can be in contact with that person, because if they don't know their court dates and they get out of jail and then they end up missing that court date, an FTA will occur, meaning a failure to appear, and then a warrant will be placed on that person, and eventually he or she will be rearrested.
Right. So I want to address one other question. I do want to acknowledge we're getting a few questions about how you can support, how you can get involved. We really appreciate that, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But then some other questions regarding what we're talking about now. Raheem, do you know if a person's held in jail pre-trial, do the jails have any work programs where they're used for labor, exploited for labor within the jails?
Well, so I mean, I'm not laughing because I think it's funny. It's just that I am aware of the sheriff department has programs, and there are some people, but I think they actually have sentences. They go out and they work in the community, and this could involve picking up trash and various other things. But I'm not aware of or not knowledgeable of anyone who is being held pre-trial without a sentence. And we know in Nashville that over 81% of people who are in jail right now do not have a sentence. They're waiting pre-trial, and they are only there because they can't afford the bail.
Right. So that's a little bit about like just what our day-to-day work looks like in terms of making the bails, which we call that the harm reduction aspect of our work. It's something that is necessary. And as long as there are people that are in jail because they can't afford bail, we want to respond to that, and we'll continue to make bails. But we also want to talk a little bit about kind of the next steps for us and the work we want to do to change this system. And I see some of you starting to ask questions about that as well. Because the making the bails is an interruption to the system, but just making the bails themselves will never change the system. So our work is not just making those bails, but also all of this work around dismantling and transforming that system. So I want to go into that and let Raheem speak on that a little bit as well.
Yeah. So I think somebody had a question of like how they could get involved. We really don't want to miss that question, and I'll let you address that part, because we are going to be looking for individuals. But one of the things that I'm thinking about as it relates to getting involved, and I'll get into answering that question, is that we have to have eyes on the system. I mean, great injustices occur when people are not paying attention and not looking. And the reality of the criminal legal system and every player in it, whether it's judges, let's just start with whether it's police officers, whether it's judges, whether it's district attorneys, or even defense attorneys, and even those responsible for guarding people who are in jails. Our tax dollars are providing their salaries to perform those particular tasks. And if we see things that are wrong and we say nothing, we're saying we consent to their behaviors. And what we have observed just being in court on many different occasions is that there's quite a bit of disrespect that occurs from on the bench, just in how persons are talked to who are charged with offenses. I mean, if you've never been charged with an offense, you really wouldn't understand what I'm talking about. I mean, it is a tremendous amount of pressure to be in a courtroom and to feel the intimidation that comes from the bench. And it's very important that Nashvillians make a decision on what type of people do we want representing who we are, because there is a way that justice can occur, and it doesn't mean we have to do harm for harm.
Yeah, so that's one way I saw in the chat someone asked about how you as voters can help our work or help with addressing the problems of bail. And so that's kind of what Raheem was talking about. All of these people, the judges, the DA, people like that are elected. And so it's not something, they're elected to serve you and serve the interests of our community. And so if they aren't, when they aren't, we can not only call them out and do actions and other organizing around them, but you as the people also have the power to vote in those situations.
I'm not sure if I answered that question. What was that question, just to be on the safe side?
Well, yeah, you didn't answer it directly, but you were talking about judges and elected officials. The question is, how can people as voters help our cause?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, certainly.
Yes.
We definitely have to vote in the type of people that we believe will represent our interests. Personally, I think about people being progressive because Nashville as a city has an opportunity to lead. There's a lot of people all across this nation who pay attention to what's happening in Nashville, and some even call Nashville the it city. And one of the things about attention is that if people are watching, I mean, they're looking at what we're doing. And what I believe is true about a leader is that leaders solve problems. And right now, I don't know that that's happening in our criminal legal system, but it definitely can happen. And it's going to take people to participate for that to occur.
So in terms of our long-term mission, so our long-term mission is to end wealth-based detention as a whole. What do you see as the next steps for the Nashville Community Bail Fund for that, Raheem?
So our work has to involve disruption of the system. And what disruption of the system means, judges, district attorneys are not used to, or from people showing up, paying attention, looking at what's happening in the processes of people who are charged with offenses. Disruption is also speaking out when you don't believe in what's happening or when you think what's happening is wrong. And we are looking at that first question: how are bails actually, how is the dollar amount arrived at? And one part of what can be considered disruption is that we have to ask questions about what's really happening. And from that point, we have to begin to dismantle some of what is happening. For example, it takes a lot of money to operate this system, the criminal legal system here in Nashville. And we have to ask ourselves, why is it that we, for example, may spend $12,000 to educate someone, but $30,000 over, a year's time if they end up in prison to incarcerate someone. So dismantling mean we may have to do some defunding. Defunding may mean, like, do we need this many jails? You may have heard recently people talk about defunding police. I mean, that may have something to do with it, but ultimately we have to transform the system. And in transforming the system, for example, I may have an argument with someone I love. Someone else may hear that argument, and they may call the police. In Nashville, because domestic violence is a serious thing, if police officers respond to a call like that, somebody's going to go to jail. But what if we had individuals like, for example, Gideon's Army showing up with a violence interrupter, or someone who shows up who is trained in psychology and conflict resolution, showing up and having a conversation? We do not actually have to have a police in that process, and that process actually can be resolved right then and there on the spot, and nobody has to go to jail. And I think that's the most important thing. We can also look at, do we have to send people to jail? No, we don't. We can write citations. For example, last night we had a protest at the state capitol. Everyone who was arrested was cited except for two people. And the only two people that went to jail, they went to jail for disorderly conduct or being drunk. And so we can start using more citations, because we have to ask ourselves, do we really need 1,000 police officers in Nashville? I mean, really, is it that serious? And just another point to make is that Nashville police officers are about to buy 2 helicopters. We already have 4. And this is going to cost the city about $10 million. Do we need more helicopters, flying in the neighborhoods looking for people? So these are some of the things that the Nashville Community Bail Fund intends to do. And ultimately, if we do it correctly, we will end wealth-based detention. And so this is going to involve organizing. We're going to need people joining us as we add more people to the team of the Nashville Community Bail Fund, and we do more advocacy and education. We have to come to places where we normally wouldn't be. Like, we need to have dinner talks. We need to talk about what are some of the solutions that we can implement. And we just can't talk about problems. We have to demand change. And it's going to take people actually to vote. And it's going to take you all who are interested in making the change, connecting with us, joining us, and taking this journey with us, because we cannot do it alone. I just really have to say that, and it's very important for you to understand. The Nashville Community Bail Fund, with this small amount of staff members, we can't change Nashville as it relates to pretrial detention. We really do need you. So think about, are you willing to lend a little bit of your time to aid and assist us? And yeah, donations are fine. That works, because we have to put money into the things that we're doing, but we also have to have bodies. And Jessica can talk about, one of the programs that we foresee coming soon.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to address a few more of these questions really quick. Thanks so much for the questions. And so I saw someone asked if there's a bail reform platform for anyone up for election. And then another person said that it's hard they try to research a judge who's on the ballot upcoming, and it's hard to find information. Is there research to find the track records or judges of DAs? To my knowledge, there's not a central resource to find that information. And part of the problem with the court system and the criminal legal system as a whole is that although courtrooms are public, there isn't normally a public presence in the courtrooms to see what happens inside them. And sometimes the things that happen inside them, oftentimes the things that happen inside them, people don't see anything about and can't raise their voices about. And so one way we want to respond to that, and will respond to that with your help, is by starting a court watch program. We've had a court watch program in the works for a while, and as soon as people are allowed back in our courtrooms, we need your help, all of your help, to make that happen. And the purpose of that the purpose of that program, as Raheem stated, is to get a public presence in our courtrooms, to show our judges, our DAs, even our attorneys, anyone in there, that the community is watching, and the community sees what they do, knows what they do, and to fight for those reforms that we want to see, to do those changes we want to see. And so that's one way you can volunteer with us, is to get involved in that court watch program. We have a few other ways to volunteer, which I'm going to put in the chat, and it's also on our website, a volunteer form. Really any skills. We have our base of support has grown so much over the past 2 weeks, and we want to know what skills you have that you would want to give to the bail fund. And so we have plenty of ideas there, but we're also very open. This idea, or the potential to have a volunteer base like this, is new to us. And so we want to hear from you how you think you could contribute, what you would like to help us with. If there's something that you think of, if there's a skill or a talent or just time that you can give, that is really appreciated. Right. And so I'm jumping here. I just want to make sure I get the questions. Oh, what's up, Raheem?
I want to add a little bit to that, to add to what you just said about the person who wants to know about the information. So one of the things that we intend to do is create our own information. So when we're in court watch, we are grading what's happening within the processes that we see and how people are treated. We want to look at the judges. We want to look at the district attorneys. We actually want to look at the defense attorneys, because at some point we will have to visit indigent defense, and we have to ask this question: is that actually being done correctly? Because the same thing that we talk about with wealth-based detention and people can't get out of jail due to that factor, there is another form of it that happens when the person actually can't get out, but then is not actually selecting his or her attorney, but a judge is actually providing that selecting that attorney for that person. And many times these outcomes are disastrous. But make sure that I'm clear on the disruption or the dismantling and the transformation, the Nashville Community Bail Fund has successfully litigated in the courts an issue where judges wanted to take money from the bail fund to pay court cost fees and fines, which would have greatly reduced our ability to get more people out of Nashville. I mean, we had reached a point to where we were getting out 40 people a month, and the bail fund has successfully freed more than 1,090 Nashvillians from jail, and over 93% of them have returned. So dispelling that myth that money is attached to people going back to court is a false narrative. And so part of creating more information is for us as Nashvillians to participate in that process. And there's one other thing that is important for you to understand is that in 2017, the Civil Rights Corps sent a letter to the city threatening to sue the city because it believed that the city's bail practices were illegal. And the city made a lot of promises to the Civil Rights Corps, and the city has not honored those promises. And so the bail fund may ultimately have to engage the system legally to challenge some of its practices, because there's not one way to bring about transformation within a system. And if we have had success legally, we have no reason not to try that again. And so that will be coming in the future. So supporting the bail fund and also involves supporting its legal strategies and its means by which it approaches the constitutional issues as well.
Definitely. So we got another question. How easy is it to get information for the people we're looking to bail out, as well as get in touch with their friends and family and make sure they make their court dates? So I think in general, what we see, so the stated purpose of cash bail a lot of the times is that cash bail is assigned to ensure that people get back to court. And Raheem spoke on this a little bit, but what we see and what our data and our experiences show us is that that's not true, because the over 1,000 people that we've bailed out of jail, none of them has put up any of their money. And yet 90% of them, over 90% of them do return to court. And so when they don't return to court, what we see is there's almost always a barrier in place that prevents that. So it may be that they are experiencing homelessness and they don't have a way to get in touch with us. Maybe they don't have a cell phone, so they can't get reminders about their court dates. They don't have a ride to court, or they don't have childcare, or they're in jeopardy of losing their job if they miss work, things like that. And so in terms of is it easy to get in touch with friends and family to make sure they make their court dates? It is. I would say almost all the time, the people we bail out and their support systems work with us. They're willing. They want to be successful. They want to make it back to court. Yeah, and so that would be my answer to that. Do you want to add anything else, Raheem?
Yeah, I'll just add that if you're talking about the individual just in general, there's information that's available to every Nashvillian and anybody else who's not from Nashville, is that the Sheriff's Department, when it arrests anyone, that information is on the Sheriff's Department's website, Davidson County Sheriff's Office. And there's also a criminal court clerk's website where you can actually look at the dockets Monday through Friday to actually see who's being held on bail. For example, I was looking at the docket this morning and I saw one individual who missed court, and we don't know why he missed court, but since he missed court, the presiding judge gave him a, what was it, 10, 20, 30, 40, like a $50,000 or $60,000 bail. He put $11,000 on every nonviolent case, and this was nonviolent, by the way. He put $11,000 on every case. And so what you have in Nashville is judges pretty much taking over or taking control of an individual's life when that process doesn't meet their expectations in terms of a person returning back to court. Another example is we had a person who didn't come to court today. And I'm very grateful for the court officer who called the Nashville Community Bail Fund, because I was able to call the person. Comes to find out that his wife has been in critical condition in the hospital for the last 3 months. And he wasn't trying to hear anything. He's been at his wife's bedside. And so when there is no space for the humanity of people to be considered before judges make decisions to haul people back into courts and rearrest them. I mean, we got to ask ourselves, I mean, what kind of system are we running, and what type of system do we support?
Yeah, absolutely.
And Jessica, we can't, and I think we might need to say this a few times.
Yeah.
Of all the individuals that have been arrested that we have bailed out, more than 50% of those cases were not prosecuted. So just think about that. More than 50% of those cases were not prosecuted. And this is just bail fund data that we can verify. Imagine what's happening outside of the people that we can't reach, that we don't have the money to reach, that the system won't allow us to touch. If more than 50% of cases are being dismissed, what does that mean for people who are in jail and can't get out? We do know that the likelihood of a person pleading guilty is much more greater if he or she is forced to stay in a cage. But if that same person is released to participate not only in his or her defense, but I think most important, to get back to his or her life, the outcomes are much, much better.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we have more questions, and let me catch up really quickly. Yes, got that. Are there any programs to help low-income folks with other wealth-based punishments like car impounds that can destroy lives post-release? Raheem?
Thank you, whoever asked that question, because we are not aware of one program that exists for that purpose. And what we do know is that there was a protester who got arrested, and his car was impounded. And we don't even know what actually happened in terms of how much money did that person have to pay to get his or her car back. And that is the type of question that tells us where the gaps are, what we need to fill in. But it also says, should the system be doing that? I mean, should you be taking somebody's car because it's parked, it's not harming anybody, and then taking that person's car, and if he or she, who is a poor person, can't pay it, you take it? That's a program that we need to start. And that's something I think the Bail Fund is willing to look into, and even to partner with someone who would even want to head up a program like that. I mean, we certainly are interested.
Right. And Josh has a great question. I think we'll do this one question, then we'll talk a little bit about some volunteer opportunities. And so if you have any other questions, go ahead and put them in the chat and we'll address all of those. Josh says, and this is a great point, do you know how much money can be saved by ending wealth-based detention? Because not everyone will be swayed by the promotion of welfare for others. And we do have ideas about that. Trying to remember off the top of my head, I think it's between $80 and $100 a day to house a single person in jail in Davidson County. And I don't know, Raheem, do you know the approximate amount of people incarcerated in Davidson County?
Yeah, we have a little, well, Nashville, I know about Davidson County. Nashville, we have a little over 1,000. Mm-hmm. And, I want to give props to the Sheriff Hall in Nashville, because he was one of the first to move to decarcerate the jails when COVID-19 converged on the city. And he tried to get in front of it, but we had judges to deny this thing to happen. And I want to say, give props to the Chief Public Defender, Martisa Johnson, who put in a petition to try to decarcerate jails. But I want to also say to that question that that was brought up, is that part of the future work that we intend to do is to look at things like that, to find, what is the data saying to us about, what does it take for a person to be arrested, to drive to a jail, to get booked, to sit in a jail, to spend the night in the jail, to go to court, to go back to jail, to go to court again. Like, how much money does that take? And so that's one of the reasons why we need to bring more Nashvillians into helping us to disrupt and dismantle and transform this system. The bail fund intends to look at not only who's in jail, but how long are they staying in jail. The bail fund intends to look at some of the disparities that we already know exist within the criminal legal system here in Nashville, where African Americans and Latinos and Mexicans are treated different than white people in Nashville. I mean, for example, I mentioned it earlier, but I want to reinforce that we had two people with one black, one white, same charges. One person got out for free. The African American had to pay $20,000, and that's only after we were able to get the $75,000 bail down. And so we want to look into that data and find out, you know, who's really being harmed by money bail, because we look at, and rightly so, people who have been harmed. Like, there are situations where people have to be removed from society. The problem that I think we want to address is, do you lose your humanity because of that? Are you no longer an American because of that? Like, if you have caused harm, like, we get the snapshot, the officers, they charge someone, but the charge, if 50% of the charges are wrong, then we have a serious flaw in the system. So yes, we're gonna need help with that. And the bail fund intends to really bring this data into the fore for everybody to see. And so we hope that those of you who are data analysis and who do research and who understand math, we want to bring you into this equation as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when it comes to ways that you can help us, first of all, thank you so much for each one of you that already has. Just by being on this call, you're helping us expand our mission and build our base and communicate what we see as the changes we want to make in Nashville with people. And we really appreciate that. We really can't express enough how much the support of the past couple of weeks has impacted our work and our organization, and how excited we are to have you all working with us on all of these things. And so when it comes to what you can do next steps from here, there are a few things that would be really helpful. There are three of them. The first, and is one that many of you have done already, is just to continue to share about our work on social media. You can share our website, share our mission with friends and family, continue to help us spread the word. A lot of what we've seen over the past few weeks, we've seen social media just blow up. Like, social media is such a vital tool for spreading the word about things going on in our city, not just with the bail fund, but with our city as a whole. And so you can follow us on social media, and I will in one moment put up a slide with our social media handles. The second thing you can do is, many of you have donated to us already, and we really appreciate that. We do accept recurring donations on PayPal. And so if you want to contribute to us in a more sustainable way and help us month to month to continue to operate and continue to bail people out, you can make a recurring donation on PayPal. And that link will be in the chat and on our website as well. And the last thing is what we've been talking about, is to sign up to volunteer with us. We are all ears of in terms of how you want to help us and what you want to do. And we do have a couple of volunteer opportunities that we'll be sharing about in the near future. And so those are the ways that you can help us. And if you have any questions about any of those, you can email volunteer@nashvillebailfund.org, and we'll answer any questions there about volunteer opportunities or work as a whole.
Yeah, and so Jessica, I want to get back to some of the questions that maybe we halfway asked or answered, I should say. But I see a question that says, how can we work to eliminate or have more accountable and transparent bail system? I think what's important is that in Nashville, the general sessions judges are responsible for creating pretrial jail policies. So it's very important to know that these are elected officials, and they determine how the bail process unfolds. And we know that it's not correct because there are many, many disparities. And so one way to make it transparent is to demand that we have a policy change. And that includes when judges are asking for you to vote for them in 2022. you may need to ask them, where do you stand on reforming the money bail system? And so when you talk about what steps need to be taken, that and I think this is Jen Lee, please email us, because we need to talk about this on another level, because we can't get it all in just this session. But definitely we need to work together to do a little bit more. Are bail amounts a matter of public record? Yes, bail amounts are a matter of public record. The Sheriff's Department, Criminal Court Clerk's Office. Do you know if bail reform a platform for anyone up for election? We don't, not yet, Amy. However, we want to talk about that. And Jessica's giving you the email address. Please email us back, because we intend to connect with each and every one of you who wants to do a little bit more than just what we're doing now. Excuse my lack of terminology in this question, but I seem to remember a recent ruling where the courts are garnishing bails for fees, and I think you guys are involved in ACL, and da-da-da. Okay, is the fund losing a lot of money because of these fees? Thank you for your question, and that is correct. We are involved in some litigation, and we do have a preliminary, like an injunction. So we have been able to stop the courts from taking our money, and so we're just waiting to see how that plays out. And so now we are able to continue to do what we've been doing, and so it's slowed up the process for a while, but it seems like we can get things going again, but that is still ongoing, so I can't really say a lot about that. I recently tried to research a judge who was on the election ballot that I really had. Okay, so we tried. So please, Laura, contact us. We do have something to say about that. How easy it is to get information from the people that you're looking for to bail out? We answered that, so we know about that. Recently connected with the low-income working poor person. Yeah, we just answered that too. Sorry about that person. And yeah, and do we know how much money can be saved? We answered that. Okay, let me answer this question. This is very important. At least, and Jessica, you can answer it as well. What are the biggest challenges facing the bail fund in the next few months? So, what we've learned is that Americans from all across the United States, when they want justice, they find ways to participate. And we have recently received quite a bit of donations that say, I think what's happening is wrong and I want to do something about it. And so the bail fund is going to continue to do what it's always done. It's responding by getting people out of jail, but it's also want to increase the number of people that we have working to bring about policy changes. And so in the next few months, we intend to engage the general session judges and demand that they change how the process of bail amounts are arrived at. We intend to do that. We also intend to get out into the Nashville community and have conversations with members of the community who normally wouldn't even think about what's happening with money bail, and show how we have a connection with people who don't want police in their neighborhoods. We intend to engage those communities. We intend to bring about some restorative practice connections. And so there's a lot of things that we want to do. So that, who is that? Debbie, please, not Debbie, it's Tracy. Oh, show up. Does Nashville Community Alliances? Well, yes, we do have alliances with other organizations. Our closest partner is the Choosing Justice Initiative. It was founded by the former public defender, Dawn Diener. She has been very instrumental in the bail fund becoming what it is. In fact, the early founders, Martin Brown, Joan Shane, reached out to Tracy, and she connected with Dawn. And the bail fund exists today because those individuals believed enough in the idea that it should become a legal thing. And so, yes, we do have alliances. We also work closely. We have worked with ACLU. We work with Song, Southerners on New Ground. We have worked with Open Table here recently. And yes, we do have alliances with other organizations, and we need those.
Raheem, did you see this question? It says, can you explain the difference between Metro Police and the Sheriff's Department in Davidson County?
Well, so the Metro Police are under the leadership of Chief Anderson, and they patrol the city. And ideally, they protect the city. They arrest individuals. They take them to jail. When they take them to jail, the Sheriff's Department, it's like it's a handover. Now these individuals who have been charged with offenses are in the domain of the Sheriff's Department, and the Sheriff's Department takes that person into custody after he or she is booked. And from that point, the Sheriff's Department is responsible for that person if they do not make bail, going back and forth to court and securing that person's body so he or she does not leave the control of the city. There's another question here too. It says, for those who live outside of Nashville, Davidson County, such as Brentwood, Williamson, will we be effective helping Nashville Community Bail Fund as non-voters there, or should we look to get involved in our local cities, counties? Thank you, Bill. I think it's two ways. We should definitely be collaborators. We should be partners. And while you may not be able to affect the voting process, but you can definitely influence through your education of helping people understand the money bail system here in Nashville. And not only that, we could do things together to maintain this connection where all counties work together to achieve the type of state that we want to live in. Because at the end of the day, everybody wants to be safe. Everybody wants to live their lives in such a way that they can manifest their best qualities, their human gifts. But if some people are treated different than other people, it's going to create an imbalance. And so, Bill, please email us because I think we can work together. It says, could you put the volunteer email account in the chat, please?
Yeah, I got all the links in the chat and I will post them one more time. One more question. What is your process for finding new people to bail out?
So our process is like this. For example, today, an attorney who was court appointed, not a public defender, but a court appointed attorney, had a client, and she filled out a referral. And what happens is, if you go to NashvilleBailFund.org and you click on to how to contact us, you will see pretty much all the questions that are involved in the process of filling out that information. When I got that information, I prepared my folder and I went to the jail and I interviewed this person. And afterwards, I talked to his family members and I explained to them that the bail fund is willing to make his bail. Would you help us in communicating with this individual when he transitions out? And they said yes. And so I was able to pay that bail and that person is out. Sometimes people in jail call us through their case managers, and we do an interview on site, on the phone, right then and there. And we get all the information that we need. Sometimes family members call us. Sometimes family members go to the website and they fill out the information to put in a referral. Sometimes public defenders, which is 90% of the referrals that we receive, come from the public defender's office. And yeah, so anyone can put in a referral.
All right, so we wanted to keep it under an hour, so we're going to wrap up here pretty soon. If anyone else has any more questions, feel free to go ahead and put them in now. And we will be having other sessions like this in the future. If you guys don't mind, if you want to answer a question for us, two things. One is, if we do have calls for this, like this, how often would you like for them to be? How often do you feel you could commit to a call like this? And the second question would be, what do you want to hear us talk about in the future? Anything related to money bail, the criminal legal system, our work, anything like that.
Yes. Yes, and it's very important to understand that the bail fund is approaching, let's just say it's addressing the front end process of the criminal legal system. There are other processes within the criminal legal system that the bail fund is just only dealing with one slice of it. We want to create partnerships where people who are all fighting for justice can work together in concert to bring about the systemic changes that need to happen. And to answer that question once more, is that this is the third, is this the second or the third? This is the third or fourth time that we've had a session like this, and we intend to have more. The thing is, we need to know what it is that you think is important, or what you don't know that we can engage you with and be a part of that. Oh, monthly, great. Weekly, cool. Bi-weekly, great. Okay, I have a question to everyone. How can the bail fund gain your ongoing support regardless? It doesn't have to just be money. Like, what does it take for us to say, for you to tell us that we want to join with you to be a part of the work that you're doing? Tell us what we need to do to make that happen for you.
And while you answer that, I want to address one question or a comment regarding, would love for you all to delve more into how those of us residing in other counties can be of help in addition to education. And so a couple things. One is that, the issue of money bail does not only exist in Nashville, it exists all over the United States. So while our system may not look exactly the same, the structure of the system and especially the disparities and the things that happen in the system will be the same. So anything you learn here can be applied to those other places, and that reform still needs to happen there. The other thing I would say is we're in connection with an entire network of bail funds. And so if you are interested in getting plugged into another bail fund where you live, shoot us an email at thatvolunteer@nashvillebailfund.org, and we'll help you get plugged in somewhere where you live, where you can do similar work on the ground.
Oh, wow. I see a few little things have come in, and Laura says she would love to hear testimonies as a way to sustain support. Absolutely. Absolutely. We would too. And I just want to say this, Laura, is that sometimes people just want to be bailed out. They don't want to talk about it because it may just be just that one like moment that something happened, but we do have some people who want to share their testimonies, and we're looking for people to help us in this process. That would be great. And yeah, clear and diverse volunteer opportunities time. Okay, super interested in court watch. Okay, great. Elisa, is that Elisa? Definitely connect with us, Elisa. I would love to hear right. The fact that there are 500,000 people in jail. I agree with you, Amy. And need to be, okay, cool, Peggy. Definitely. Becca, definitely. We will do that. Okay. Jessica, can you pronounce from said releasing more of the data that you gathered would be great to allow people to work with. Okay, great. Okay, we can do that.
Yeah, just reading them. Yeah, policy proposals, we can definitely let you know about that and what projects we're involved in that realm as they come up and as we continue to work on them.
Yeah, for sure, Brooke, for sure. We definitely need to, yes, Brooke, 100%. And we're headed towards that. In fact, the bail fund has decided to bring more people in to kind of do this work that you're talking about, and we look forward. It's going to happen. Yes, absolutely, Sam. Absolutely.
Yeah, we've been in touch with some of the folks that are trying to start the bail fund in Murfreesboro. And so any of you who are connected with that and want to talk to us more about that, definitely send us an email, because we would love to help out with that and plan to.
Yeah, and we also involved in helping Knoxville set up a bail fund. We're also involved in helping Clarksville set up a bail fund, and we're closely connected to the Memphis Bail Fund with Just City. And so here in the South, we're trying to make sure that these platforms get up and running, because one of the things that we know is true about bail funds is that bail funds become a voice for people who don't have a voice. Bail funds also become a bridge to bridge the gap in the system where some are held in jail and some are released. So bail funds are just like, I can't tell you how important they are. Absolutely. Absolutely. We definitely want to, we definitely need that, Tracy. Tracy, we need that. We need that fundraising event, because the more resources we have, I think the greater our reach. Because I mean, I don't know how to say this, but we're kind of in a war, a social justice war, and you can't do anything without resources. So yes, Tracy, please connect with us. We want to do that. Thank you, Elisa. We're grateful too.
Yeah, a few people talking about
Hold
support.
up, Lindsay. We got Lindsay here. We have to say something to Lindsay. Lindsay, we definitely need to look into this. One of our co-founders, Joan Shane, has always worried about what happens to people when they get out of jail. And that is an area where we have not been able to fully develop, but we definitely need some help, if just to connect people to resources that already exist once they are released. We definitely want that. So we look forward to reaching out to you and connecting with us. You do have the email. Yes, absolutely, Sharon.
All
That's,
right.
that's right, Hannah. I agree with you, Hannah.
We agree with it all.
Yes.
Thank you all so much again. I'm going to put these links in one more time. All the ideas you have about volunteering and how you can help with us are wonderful. So if you don't mind, if you'll fill out that volunteer form with those ideas, just so we can have them all collected and reach out to you about how you can further support us. And yeah, again, we just want to thank you so much. We really appreciate all of you for being here.
And I just want to say thank you for just spending this time with us and hearing what we have to say. I think this is the beginning of something that we don't know what the end result will be per se, but we do know what the vision is. We want to end wealth-based detention, but for myself, just I'm speaking for me as an individual, I just want to create the type of city, the state, the country that anybody can live in. I mean, I have not given up on America. I was in prison for 26 years, and the bail fund trusted me, gave me an opportunity to be in a leadership position. And that's not happening in a lot of places. And just to have that respect, I can't tell you how blessed I feel and how privileged I am. And I just want to make sure that this country becomes what it can be. And with people like you, I know we can make it. We can make it happen. Definitely.
And one last thing, if you have a question that you didn't get time to ask or maybe didn't want to ask publicly, anything like that, you can 100% email us, volunteer@nashvillebailfund.org. You can contact us on social media. We are totally open and would like to answer any other questions you have about anything.
Appreciate that. I appreciate every one of you. Thank you very much. And last thing I'm going to say is this. If you are a donor or a reoccurring donor, thank you. Everything helps. We have to talk about that. That's part of it. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you all. Have a great night.